listener discretion advised. This episode talks about serious topics. Explicit topics.
And sexual assault.
About sex and sexual assault. If you are not comfortable listening, do not listen to this episode. Listen to the one in 2 weeks. We love ya. Have a good day. Mwah.
Mwah. Let me tell you, the worst part about the fact that Halloween is over is the fact that it is November 3rd. But it's November 3rd, and I've already heard Mariah Carey's All I Want for Christmas Is You twice. Once yesterday and once today. I
got a Christmas ad on YouTube.
It's been 3 days. Welcome to Divers and Drivers. I'm your host, Juana Moya. I use she, her pronouns. And this year for Halloween, I was Greg from Over the Garden Wall.
Hello, I am your host, Quinn Cologne. My pronouns are they, them, theirs. And this Halloween, I was Wirt from Over the Garden Wall.
Oh yeah, we did it. We were one of them bitches. Couples costume. Anyways, we hope that you have had a very happy Halloween if you celebrate.
If you had a shitty Halloween, this isn't for you.
If you don't celebrate Halloween, this entire episode is going to be a little awkward because this is our second Grabbag Oh wait, we have to do the intro for Grabbag.
Grabbag, because life is like a little rubber dragon.
Ooh.
It's cute and you can hold it in your hand. But sometimes if you when your girl shut up.
When your girl
life is like a McDonald's Luca action figurine because it's enjoyable, you like it, but sometimes it's a little ironic and it makes you laugh.
Why is it a little ironic? Speaking
of Luca, look at him. He looks like shit. It's a horrible fucking action figure.
Grabbag. Life is like a jack-o'-lantern that you left on your living room table for too many days, so it starts just deflating and getting moldy. Because it's enjoyable in one moment, it seems like a good idea from one moment, and then you leave it out too long, and then you're like, oh, I don't like what this has become. And then you give it back to the earth from whence it came, because, as our catchphrase on the show is, we are of the earth, and to the earth we shall return.
I don't think we've ever said that.
That is the catchphrase for the show.
We've never said that. I've never even... That it was existed
Quinn,
before
I have to tell you, I actually trademarked that as part of
the fuck?
Happy Halloween.
Happy belated
Halloween. We hope you had a safe Halloween. We hope you had a fun Halloween.
If you didn't have a safe Halloween,
oh,
that's not very cool.
Yeah. Halloween is also, now a lot of people don't know this, but a lot of people do know this. But a lot of people don't know this. It's also a witch holiday. Halloween is a witch holiday. It's Samhain.
Samhain.
Spelled Samhain.
Spelled Samhain.
What did we do for Halloween, Quinn? For Samhain,
we went to a local cemetery, and we cleaned off some graves, and then...
Which was funny, because I remember we were in the cemetery, and we were carrying around sticks, and we were dressed in all black, and you were wearing your witch hat, and then you said to me, I wouldn't want to talk to us if I was somebody else.
Yeah.
Imagine 2 witches walking around with large sticks in a cemetery on Halloween.
The funny thing is,
my God,
when we were leaving, in my head, I was kind of like, there's probably going to be some other witches doing witchy shit, because there are a lot more witches than you think, like, walking around. And so I figured, I was like, oh, there's probably going to be some other people doing some funky stuff, because it's, Samhain / Halloween and whatever. Got there, it was basically fucking empty.
The only people that we saw were people walking through the cemetery to get to the other side of the road.
Yeah, the cemetery's like in between two main quote unquote like streets, and there's like a big thing in the middle. When the gates are open, there's a big trail and it connects in the center and you can pass.
Yeah,
so
you
people
can go
like would
from,
pass
one
through
avenue to the other.
Exactly. So people would pass through just to like as a shortcut. Didn't do much in the cemetery just because the way the day played out, it was...
Yeah, we were only there for an hour.
Yeah, it was super, like, time constrained. But it was a nice thing, and I think, I would like to make that an annual thing.
Like, when we were fixing the graves, because some of the headstones were broken.
Wait. Guys, if you are planning on doing this, bring a fucking broom.
Oh, absolutely,
my God. Bring a broom.
Bring a fucking broom.
You're gonna regret it if you don't, because it's a pain in the ass. I picked up a palm frond at one point and was using that, and it worked pretty well, but it hurt my hands, and then there was a spider on my hand, and I had to get him off, and then he went onto my pants. It was a whole thing.
Yeah. When we were fixing up some of the headstones, it was actually a little funny, because I was thinking to myself, like in my head, like, wow, this is a mini game. We're literally doing a mini game right now, like where we have, because we were picking up the pieces and we were like, which side do we have to turn it?
No, I did feel like Indiana Jones when a headstone was like, first of all, fucked up that they just let the headstones get all broken like that and they don't have anyone fix it, because there was some stuff that you could tell had been broken for a while.
Oh, absolutely. In the Jewish part,
which is messed up,
with like the really big like pieces of, granite, like, shaped. One of them fell over and cracked the entire, like, piece of granite that was, like, on the ground. And it was, like, it was huge and it was sad, frankly.
Some of the headstones, I feel like, looked too intentionally broken, if that makes sense.
Yeah. And there were pieces missing and stuff.
In
and
some
I was
of
like,
them, yeah. It's, like, weird.
Did people steal these?
I did not go into the Jewish part.
I went into the Jewish part.
I did not feel comfortable going into the Jewish part.
I noticed that. I was like, Quint, you're just gonna wait out there.
But
at the gate,
I wanted to help.
And then you wandered. And then I was like,
well, I threw away trash for you, and then I wandered.
Yep.
Because I wanted to help. I wanted them to know, hey man, I'm not Jewish, but I want to help.
Yep. I felt like you remember when you play like Lego Star Wars, and you can only go into a certain section with a certain character?
Yeah.
That's what I felt like.
That's kind of what it was. Because, I mean, there's a reason that Jewish people create sections specifically for, like, Jewish stuff. Like, from what I understand, and correct me if I'm wrong, Jewish people were the ones who said we want a Jewish section. Not the Christian people being like, you need to have a Jewish section, right?
I wouldn't know.
Okay, well, in your little book...
In my little book, it probably says that, yeah.
I read, like, stuff about burial and stuff, and how Jewish people wanted to have Jewish sections in order to keep, like, the culture and keep families together, etc., 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 and if, if you left the religion, you wouldn't be able to be buried there, blah, 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 whole thing. Anyway, so, I was standing at the gate, and there was just, like, this feeling in me that was like, I should not go in there. But Christian the thing holidays. About in the cemetery, it was obviously, like, I wouldn't say they were, like, Orthodox Jews, because I have no idea who these people were.
Right, but we were right next to a temple.
Yes.
Like, that graveyard is right next to a temple.
It was kind of obvious that they were more conservative. Mm-hmm. I mean, to me, it seemed pretty obvious that they were more conservative and probably had those beliefs, especially since a lot of those graves were really fucking old. Like, from, like, early 1900s. Maybe the latest was, like, the 60s, 70s, or 80s. Mm-hmm. A lot of those graves were World War I, World War II. So... Yep. I mean, and to me, like, that's just obvious that it's, like, they were more conservative. So I was just like, yeah, I'm not going to go in there. But I will support from over here.
Man, I don't understand how people can, like, go into cemeteries and be like, time to fuck around. I'm like, bruh? How tone deaf can you be? Like, props to fucking Mary Shelley losing her virginity on her mother's grave. My fucking
That's why she was able to do it, because it was on her mom's grave, and her mom was like, yeah! Get that, bitch!
Oh my God. I don't know what kind of mom Mary Shelley had in, like, the 1800s.
Probably a mom that was like, fuck
holy
yeah.
fuck. Fun fact, Mary Shelley is the only person to have created one of the quote-unquote conventional Hollywood monsters. Because, like, and I'm talking about, like, in terms of werewolves, vampires, mummies,
I think
swamp monsters, all of those things were created culturally. Like, vampires exist in a lot of different cultures.
I
Werewolves
think
exist.
Vlad the Impaler started the vampire trend.
Right, no, but that was a thing before him. You've seen What We Do in the Shadows. There were, like, vampires.
Bruh,
like
I don't think you should base your vampire history
No, but I
off
mean
of
this,
a
like,
Taika
genuinely,
Waititi movie.
bruh. I mean this genuinely, like, the concept of a blood-sucking person existed before Vlad the Impaler.
Yeah.
Right? And so, but Frankenstein didn't exist before Mary Shelley. She was the person who was like, I'm gonna create an entire genre and also a monster that is going to be culturally relevant until probably the end of the human
Existence.
The end of the human experiment.
Yep.
So Mary Shelley, original girl boss. But also
I never read that book.
don't have sex on people's graves.
Unless you get explicit permission.
I mean, props to Mary Shelley. I love her.
Okay, here's the thing. I think your and my opinions differ on that in the way that when you originally said the point of, I don't know how people can go into cemeteries and just fuck around, I understood that as, like, why would you want to, like, wreak havoc in a cemetery, right? Like, why would you want to purposefully,
that's what I mean.
like, fuck shit up? Like, to me, that's disrespectful, to go in with the intention of disrespect. Now, I always went to cemeteries when I was younger. I would run amok in the way that I just liked being in cemeteries and liked the energy. I like walking around, just vibing, basically. I was never disrespectful, I hope. I'm sure there were some things I did that were questionable, but, you know, however, my stance on the having sex in a graveyard...
Yeah, I don't think the ghosts there would be... I mean, I know some of them would be down. Some of them would be...
Down for what? They can't do anything.
I mean, down to see that shit, bro. Voyeurism exists. But I mean, like... There's gonna be a lot of prude ghosts.
Okay, but here's the thing, though. There aren't a lot of ghosts in cemeteries. There's a difference between ghosts and spirits. I think there are spirits in cemeteries. But realistically, why the fuck would you haunt a cemetery?
Because,
that's not...
vibes.
90% of the time, that's not where traumatic experiences happen, which causes people to stay tethered to something,
Hey man,
right?
I'm not here to dictate where ghosts
I'm
spend
not
their
here
time.
to dictate either, but I'm saying I don't think there are a lot of... I think there are probably spirits in cemeteries, and maybe those spirits are people who have passed on, but I think a ghost and a spirit are two different things. I think ghosts, specifically, are dead people who haunt a place because of a traumatic experience they had. I think a spirit is maybe just people who are there to vibe. Spirit, people, and any other entities who are there to vibe and hang out. Does that make sense? I mean, don't do bondage in the cemetery. But, like, if you're, you know,
what
in the
kind of sex is allowed in a cemetery?
The kind of sex that would be allowed in a cemetery, I feel anyway, would be the kind that's more like connected. Does that make sense? I feel like a cemetery sex vibe should be like a person you're connected to, and there's like passion there. You know what I mean?
Oh God! When we pressed record, I really didn't think
we'd be talking about the specifications of cemetery sex. But doesn't that make sense?
Yeah, I guess. Anyways, speaking about sex and Halloween, we immediately after going to the cemetery, we went home and no.
You literally wish.
Hey, after going to the cemetery on Halloween, we watched Rocky Horror Picture Show. It was my first time watching it. My fucking God. I did not think it was going to be that, I've never watched Rocky Horror before. I didn't think it was going to be that. I enjoyed it. Did not think it was going to be that.
Really?
Really good, though. it was always just, you've never watched Rocky Horror?
Yeah,
you need to
'cause
watch
it's
it. And then I did, and I
cult
was like,
classic.
oh, it's really good. But you
It's
don't need
so
you don't
funny.
need me to tell you that. But it
That
was
movie
really weird.
always
Like,
reminds me how much I love Susan Sarandon.
it's so strange. Like, nobody's ever spoiled Rocky Horror for me, despite knowing all of the music and stuff. It's like everybody's like expects you to know.
Yeah.
Like if you're in the know, you're in the know.
Yes. I feel like it's the same thing with Star Wars, because every time you talk about a Star Wars movie, the old ones, not the new ones, every time you talk about a Star Wars movie, people just be like, oh yeah, it's exactly like when Jabba the Hutt in fucking Return of the Ass Cheek said at 30 minutes, 52 seconds, 7 milliseconds, Fleeble Geeble, and that ties into
My favorite character, Glup Shudo, shows up.
exactly like people, when you mention Star Wars around people and Star Trek, people just automatically assume you're an expert.
Oh, absolutely.
They're like, oh yeah, remember in the fourth Star Trek movie when Spock got fucked in the ass and then he shat himself, and then in the second movie it alluded to that because blah blah blah, and you're sitting there like,
foreshadowed it,
you're
bro.
sitting there like, what the fuck is happening? But it's like a
My
cult classic.
fucking God.
All the cult classics, people expect you to know everything about, and honestly, I think that's good.
Yeah,
Because then it makes
because
you
it's
want
such
to
a
be.
small circle.
It makes
you
you
know?
want to be in on the know.
Yeah,
I think that's better than just talking about spoilers, because spoilers makes me not want to watch it.
absolutely.
If people are like, "Oh yeah, this is blah blah blah," and they have like a secret little
Not to
club, I'm like,
mention-
I want
Not
that.
to mention, cult classics have often been around longer and therefore don't have the capacity to be spoiled like something new. Like,
Yeah.
for example, I have no fucking clue what happens in the room. Like, all I know is that there's all I know is the memes, like, oh, hi, Mark, and hi, doggy, you're my favorite customer, and there's a really, multiple weird sex scenes in it, and he spends, 3 minutes of the movie, putting together a phone.
Okay.
But in terms of plot, can't say, I have no clue about it.
I'm gonna be honest. I watched The Room. I could not tell you anything about the plot.
I feel like that's... What other cult classics are there? Breakfast Club.
I've never seen it.
It's good. It's really good. I mean, barring... John Hughes has a thing where he's like, sexual assault on screen, and everybody just rolls with it. And everybody just... Molly Ringwald, the girl who was, the princess character in Breakfast Club, who was, she did Pretty in Pink, she did 16
Sure.
Candles. She was the girl, the redhead, who wears pink all the time. My fucking God. Anyway, Molly Ringwald, her career started because she was, cast in all of those movies, right? And she was, repeatedly cast, kind of how the woman, Greta Gerwig. Greta Gerwig.
Greta Thunberg.
Greta Gerwig always casts Saoirse Ronan, in Lady Bird and in Little Women.
I feel like directors have actors they like to work
No, yeah,
with.
of course. And also, she always casts Timothée Chalamet. But
He freaks me out.
basically, she cast... Well, John Hughes cast Molly Ringwald in all of these movies, and that's how her career was started. She wrote an article for The New Yorker where she was like, yes, these movies basically...
Started my career.
If I wasn't cast in these movies, I don't know if I'd be famous. I don't know if I'd be an actor or not. But she was like,
However,
all of this, right?
But
also, John Hughes was a weird guy in terms of sexually assaulting, young teenage characters. He didn't sexually assault, as far as I know.
No, but he was a weird guy in terms
Discretion
of showing sexual assault of young teenage characters on screen.
Yeah, absolutely.
Is what you're trying
And it was
to say.
just happened. And it was just a casual thing. And then in the Breakfast Club, for example, her character falls in love with the person who is most abusive towards her consecutively throughout the movie. What? Yeah, I get it. It's the 80s, right? Whatever. But still? What the fuck?
Yeah.
Anyways, cult classic movies are good. And they are a product of their time.
But here's the thing, though. We say... Nah.
What?
No, I was going to say we say stuff is a product of their time. But then you have stuff. When was the Breakfast Club made? What year? When did it come out?
85.
Okay.
But it was written.
So there's a few. I have a few arguments to make.
Mm-hmm.
One, when we say stuff is like a product of their time, it's important to look at everything that's made at that time, because the Breakfast Club was made, and I haven't seen it, but apparently it seems to be pretty, like...
it's a good movie. It's a good coming of age.
No, I know, but apparently it seems to be pretty, like, controversial or overlooks, some important things. But then in the same year, I mean, it's also two different mediums. One is a movie and one is playwriting. But then in the same decade, you have Angels in America. Angels in America was written 2 years, was starting to be written 2 years after The Breakfast Club. And they are fucking, like, Angels in America is, like, super ahead of its time. Super topical, especially to now, especially to today. Super deals with, like, serious stuff. And, like, what I'm trying to say is, like, it's less, this point is less about Breakfast Club and more about how when we say stuff is, like, a product of its time, it's important to also look at, like, other forms of media from its time, because if you look at it, you can see that there are people creating things and people in general that were like, hey, wait, maybe no. You know what I mean?
Yep.
Like, I feel like this is just, like, a kind of a thought, like a fleeting thought that I had that I think should be considered by people. Like, it's fucked up to see fucked up things from the past and then say it's a product of its time, so therefore it's okay. You know what I mean?
No,
like I feel like no, I'm not saying you. I'm saying I feel like people and we as a society do that a lot. You know what I mean? Because we're like, well, it's a product of its time, which yes, it is, which means it's gonna have more controversial stuff in it probably, and like by controversial, I mean plainly just fucking ignorant. It's gonna have more ignorant stuff in it, obviously. However, it's important to know that these people also knew it wasn't good. Like, it's not like they were doing this stuff and they were like, yeah, this is fine. Like, they knew it wasn't good. There's no way that they were just like, I'm gonna say 9 times out of 10, there's no way half the people are walking around being like, yeah, I think this is fine and there's nothing wrong with this. Bitches know it not be good. They do it anyway. That's the problem.
Here's the thing, though. When I say it's a product of its time, and I know that you meant it generally, not specifically, but I'm just talking about when I use the phrase.
Yes.
I use it in a way that is like, makes sense culturally as to why the thing that is written has been written.
Doesn't excuse it.
Doesn't excuse it.
Yeah.
For example, fucking Virginia Woolf. Yes, ahead of her time, but also a product of her time, bitch, because everybody's like, she's so forward in her ideas, bitch. She was just a woman who was making her own, writing her own shit. And I have respect for her, don't get me wrong. I have some respect for her, because, her writing is good, and, she made some good points. But she, if you read A Room of One's Own, she argues that all a woman needs to be successful is a room of her own and money. Right? Everybody's like, oh, it's a feminist masterpiece. And I'm like, bruh, she literally uses the N slur in reference to black women. And is like, the best this is like a quote from the book, I'm paraphrasing, but she goes, the best black woman is not as good as the worst white woman.
Wow.
But like, it's still, it's complicated. Shit's complicated. Yeah. She's ahead of her time, but also very much product of her time. However, Virginia Woolf is important because
she's a
you can use
turf.
that as... Yeah, she would have been. 100%. Virginia Woolf's a turf.
I hate that. She doesn't even know what that is.
She doesn't even know what that is. And
she's fucking dead.
Dude, she was an anti-Semite and married a Jew. Huh? Anyways.
That happens a lot.
But I had a point. But it's important to know how far you've come from that piece of work.
Yes.
Right? Breakfast Club, good movie, important movie. And the reason why people are, and like, as the more something ages, the more critically you can take a look at it from a new context, but you can't have your new context kind of, there's a word that I'm looking for here. You can't have your modern context on an older piece of work and expect it to change the entire piece.
No, yeah.
You know? So, like, yeah. And they play the sexual assault in that movie for shock. Like, that's it. Now I've had, like, one of my, like, I saw this YouTube series about, like, this guy psychoanalyzing each of the characters, because he's a child psychologist. Oh. So he psychoanalyzes each of the characters in The Breakfast Club, like the main characters, and he talks about Claire, which is Molly Ringwald's character, and he's like, yeah, she is the most overlooked in the entire movie. It's fucked up what she goes through in that movie, you know, and like nobody pays attention to it because she's supposed to be vain and pretty, which is like, huh? Every other character gets respect except her? Oh, I get it. Misogyny. Mm-hmm. Anyways, the Halloween episode, because nothing is scarier than bigotry in film. Spooky. Okay. Nothing scarier than sexual assault, man.
Okay.
And I feel like that's not a hot take.
No, it is not. But speaking of sexual assault, another topic that I wanted to mention was I saw a post recently, and this is related to this is the other topic I want to talk about. It's kind of a different tangent, but I saw a post that said we need to get rid of all sexual assault scenes in film and media.
I remember seeing that.
And I, as a theater major, disagree. Obviously, sexual assault is fucking bad. Don't do it. If it happens to you, tell someone, etc., etc. Like, it's fucking bad. However, I think, first of all, it's been normalized on TV. I will say that, especially with and things like...
a lot of times they play it for
a lot shock. Of times they play it for shock. I think that's fucked up. But I think having sexual assault depicted in media is important, because it can, if you do it the right way, and if you do it with a purpose, not just because, which a lot of people do, if you do it with a purpose and make it like,
if you do it in a way that serves,
if you do it in a way that
serves
the character, serves the story, and serves the society that you're making it for, then there's no reason it shouldn't be there, because it's obviously there to make a point. I'm just bringing stuff back to Angels in America because it's the thing that runs my life right now. But in terms of like an example in that show is Angels in America is a very sexual show. Extremely. And a lot of plays are very sexual, just in general. And a conversation that I had recently was the conversation of the difference between, like, what makes something vulgar, right? And a lot of sexual assault scenes and sex scenes in general, especially in mass media, are very vulgar because they're done and they're empty. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. Like, you can watch something. What makes something vulgar is when the people that are saying it, doing it, etc., you know, going through the motions of it, are doing it with just the intention of just doing it on screen or on stage or etc. Like, doing it with the purpose just to, like, well, I'm gonna have fun with this because blah blah blah, you know what I mean? Which, of course, have fun with the stuff you do, but to make something matter is to fill that thing with meaning, which is why anything that's, because sex is never just about sex.
Some writer said, or I want to say Oscar Wilde, but I know for a fact that it's not. But somebody said somewhere, everything is about sex except for sex.
Yeah.
And fun fact, the reason bitches started using tablecloths during the Victorian era was because they thought the table legs were too curvy and too saucy.
Are
they
they
were like,
okay?
no, that was like the most sexually repressed
Are
time,
they
but also
okay?
sexually explicit time in history. Because my fucking god, if you think that table legs are too sexy, my god, you are only thinking about sex.
You're brain dead. You're brain dead. Please
You're literally
help,
only
dear
thinking
God.
about
Please
sex.
touch some grass, please, dear God. When doing it on screen, half the time, the characters and the actors aren't coming from it, and this is not dissing any actors, I want to say, because, you know, a lot of the time it's the director's fault and the casting director's fault, and etc., you know. However, a lot of the time on screen it's done in a very vulgar way and almost purposefully vulgar. But if you want something, the only time sexual assault should ever be on screen is when it's meant for a purpose, like a genuine purpose to teach a lesson to society about something or whatever, to make a point. That's what I'm trying to say. But it needs to be there because it needs to be talked about and it needs to be highlighted because it is a fucking problem in every society known to man.
Yep.
Just blanketly, just like saying the blanket statement of all sex scenes need to be removed from media is fucking, all sexual assault scenes, I should say, need to be removed from media is fucking absurd. Like, that's literally insane to say that. Because then you're going back to just not talking about it.
And that is also very bad.
And that's worse.
Yeah.
It's worse to just not talk about it. It's so much worse. Like, the reason, like, art and film and shows are art, which people forget, but it's art. And the reason that art fucking exists is to make a point and make the shit that you don't want to talk about go out in the open.
Yeah.
So politics, sexual assault, sex in general, misogyny, sexism, racism, homophobia, etc. All that shit, it's supposed to be out there in the open through art. So sexual assault is such a, like, intense, scary thing.
Mm-hmm.
It can be used to represent so much. You know what I mean? It can be used to send, like, such gigantic messages. That's why, you know, there are playwrights that do it. That's why there's songs about it, paintings about it, etc. Because it says so much, and a lot of it is bad. I'm trying to just say...
Okay, thesis of Quinn's argument.
Thesis of my argument, it's insane to say that all sexual assault scenes need to be removed from media. That's dumb. Maybe a trigger warning, but other than that...
Except that movies do have trigger warnings in the form of ratings. The rating system is literally to tell you,
when it says
it's
rated
not just
R,
it's not just rated R.
It says sexual content,
so teenagers
etc.
who like sneak in are cool as hell. No, they have ratings for a reason. You know, these movies go through a review board and they are given these classifications. That's why in TV you see the little bar, the little square at the top left corner telling you, like, TV 14 or something like that. You know, like, those exist. So that's how Halloween went. Rocky Horror does have some borderline sexual assault scenes in it. But also it's funny.
It's funny. And it's not
saying sexual assault is funny.
No, because the reason it's funny is because it's not really sexual assault. It's because it's like, you're not who I thought you were, but I kind of like it. But I'm not supposed to. But I kind of do anyway. You know what I mean?
Literally,
it's one of those.
It's so funny.
It's like, no.
Yeah.
If you haven't seen Rocky Horror, please watch Rocky Horror. Rocky Horror
It goes
definitely
from sexually repressed to sexually liberated in like 10 minutes.
The entire time we had, it was like an event with drag queens and actors and reenactors, right? So we had this like one guy on the mic and he was saying jokes and like stuff.
Yeah, he was like commentating
show.
The entire, which is like a traditional thing during Rocky Horror
it's like
screenings.
normal to do.
However, if you go to one, you should know because you're in the club.
One of the things I disliked at the end was especially someone, I don't know if it was him. I feel like I remember it being him, but I might be wrong and I'm not going to say that it was. Was someone said something about like, well, that movie, you know, had no theme and was meaningless and blah, blah, blah. And it's like, hey man, maybe I don't know it either. However, that movie definitely has something to say. You're gonna watch that and then tell me it has nothing to say?
No, okay, wait. I watched, because I've been hyperfixating on Rocky Horror ever since we watched it. I watched an analysis based on it. Basically, the video was called Why Rocky Horror is a Cult Classic. And it was talking about, like, what makes a cult classic and, like, the history of Rocky Horror. And basically, it's, like, supposed to be a parody of, but also, like, in it of itself, a B movie. Like, that is a purpose of, like, literally the writers and the producers, when they were first making the movie, because it started off as a stage play. But when they adapted it to the screen, that's, like, the perspective that they wanted to go with. They were like, we want to make this a B movie. Right? A B movie? With Jerry Seinfeld? Yo! Frankenfurter is actually Barry B. Benson.
Yo! Tim Curry.
Howdy do I? You like jazz?
No!
I don't know. Tim Curry's fucking phenomenal.
In that movie, especially? Yes.
My fucking god. Anyways, so...
He's kind of hot in that movie.
But yeah, it does have a purpose, and sometimes the purpose is just, like, people forget that movies are allowed to just be movies and enjoyable.
Yes.
Which is why I hate... Listen, I love my brother. He has good opinions. But he's very much at the stage where he's like, no, everything needs to have a deeper meaning. And we talk about it in terms of Luca. Call back to earlier, the fucking Luca bit that you did. But Luca, the reason it's so good is because it's such a low-stakes movie. Right? And because it's just a movie about kids being kids and doing kid things. The whole goal of the movie is for them to buy a fucking Vespa. Compared to, I don't know, any other Pixar movie, The Incredibles, where they have to save the whole fucking city, save the world, and stop each other from fucking dying all the time. Yeah, it's a nice break. What's the meaning of Luca? Just to have a good time while watching it. People forget that art sometimes is just there to be enjoyed.
But here's the thing, yes and no.
This is a larger conversation that we're not going to have right now. We can save it for another Medium Morgue episode. Because that's basically what this was.
I'm literally... it's a grab bag, so you can do whatever you want.
It's grab bag.
I'm literally down to have this conversation right now.
Grab bag with a side of Medium Morgue.
Because while I agree with you, I also wholeheartedly disagree.
Anyways, we hope you have a happy Halloween and that you had a happy Halloween. This is not the direction that I thought this episode was going to go in at all. But also, we didn't plan very much for this episode because it's grab bag.
And we talk about what we want.
How we want. So we ended up talking about graveyard sex, actual sex, movie sex, unconsensual movie sex, art, Rocky Horror Picture Show, graveyard etiquette. Let's do... Oh, we forgot to make a list of zodiacs that we've done already. I'm going to do Cancer this week because I promised my friends I would do Cancer. Cancer men. Just Cancers generally. Why? Do you ever think about the things that you do? Do you have any hindsight at all? Because if you did, you wouldn't have done that thing that you're regretting. Now would you? You would have thought about it a little bit more, Yeah, I bet you feel real shitty now, huh? I bet you feel real fucking stupid now. Look at you, carrying all of that guilt and negative feeling. Come on, man. Do better. Do better, Cancers.
What the fuck is happening right now? Sagittariuses. Here's a question for you. You ever thought about doing that thing you were supposed to do? You remember that thing that you said you would do 2 days ago and you didn't do? Remember that thing that you said you would do and you didn't? And you know you're sitting there right now thinking about how you should do it right now? Yeah, you remember. Of course you do. Get off your fucking ass and do it. You should do it. It's important. There are people counting on you for it. Do it.
Thank you for listening to the podcast, Drivers. Our second Grab Bag episode. We hope that you enjoyed. Grab Bag with a side of Medium Morgue. Delicious, grade A, fantastic, amazing. Follow us on all of our socials. They're in the description. Comment what you did for Halloween. Send us a DM. What did you do for Halloween? Because we would love to hear.
We want to hear.
I feel we had a very long Halloween. I mean, my Halloween started from like 12. Because I got hella shit-faced the night before. Fell asleep at 4 in the morning. Then got up at like 9.
Also,
got ready for...
Jack Nicholson is so good.
Jack Nicholson is really good. What is he doing now?
I don't know.
And what is he doing in this very moment? Only
Jack Nicholson, if you're listening. Yeah, I think. Now you're making me doubt myself.
Somebody check up on Jack Nicholson for us, please and thank you.
Jack, if you're listening, I love you, buddy.
Jack, if you're listening,
it up.
I don't know what happened for like 2/3 of what was it? The Shining. But from what I saw, it was really good.
You're really good in that movie, Jack.
And then we also saw the Witches of Eastwick. You're really good in that one too. You have a typecast, man. Not going to tell you what it is. You probably already know.
Yeah, you definitely know.
Thank you for listening to the podcast. Next episode will be spelling test.
Yay!
And I have a lot of thoughts, and we will have a structured conversation surrounding that because I have a lot of thoughts and opinions about the topic at hand. Ooh.
What does that mean? Foreshadowing. Okay.
Have a wonderful evening, morning, afternoon, breakfast, lunch, dinner, dawn, dusk. Good evening, dear listeners. Goodbye.
Bye.